How's it going, English 218, week 11? So, we've got people all over the map right now. So really, weeks 11 and 12 are about making sure that we end up heading into the final stretch of the semester on the same page. I just wanted to make a quick video here to talk to you a little bit about where we've been and where we're headed and sort of what the method to the madness is here. So, as you've likely seen, I've had a chance to read everybody's blog posts, and by and large I was very impressed with those. Everybody did quite well. And again, the spirit of that assignment and the purpose of that assignment is to remember that science has to be communicated to the public clearly, but precisely and significantly, and in ways that are accessible and meaningful to their lives. And so that's really what we tried to do, and that's really what we tried to focus on through that assignment, and that's more or less what you were held accountable to. For those of you who haven't submitted that assignment, I hope you get it in soon, because the semester is really going to start to pile on quickly. And please remember that those of you who submitted your drafts of that on time will be given extra credit points for your effort on that and for your diligence. I realize it's been kind of a quirky and weird semester, but at the end of the day, all semesters are quirky and weird to some degree for any number of reasons. So that's really what the blog was about. Remember, the fact sheet was really about trying to do very similar things, but to do it with rapid reading and comprehension in mind. And that's really the standard that I set for you. If you were able to put forth a clear, cogent, easy-to-read message in a way that was thoughtfully placed on the page, you received most, if not full credit for that assignment. And again, if you're still working on that, that's something you're going to want to turn in sooner rather than later, because we're really going to move into the meat and potatoes of the semester, which really puts all of this onto display, and that is the annotated bibliography and the literature review assignment. Now, some of you may or may not be familiar with an annotated bibliography. I know we teach one in our English 101 classes. And an annotated bibliography sounds really complex, but it's not. It's simply a list of sources with annotations or summaries and brief analyses beneath them. And you may wonder, well, why would I want to write this? Because it's such a disjointed sort of document, and there's a couple of really good reasons. The first, and maybe the most common, is that annotated bibliographies are really useful for the researcher, the scientist, or the writer, because they're a really productive way for you to document, so cite, and to keep track of your research, to remember which scientist or which researcher or which study says what their methods were, what the results were, what the limitations were. So it's a really great reference document. And oftentimes researchers and scientists use that as a preliminary research tool. So before they even begin a study or before they even pitch a study, they will go out and they will take a look at the literature, and they will try to gather as many resources as possible and put those into an annotated bibliography of some type. That way they have at their disposal sort of a farm from which they can harvest. They have the citations ready to go, and then they have annotations that they can quickly reference, because it can be hard when you're dealing with, and it's not uncommon in a scientific article to see 75 to 150, sometimes even up to 200 references. It can be very difficult to keep track of those, and so of course I'm not asking you to do that here, but an annotated bibliography can be really helpful on that front. The other reason people write annotated bibliographies is for a public audience. So you're kind of doing the work for folks, and you're going out and you're taking a look at the literature, and you're compiling it into a useful sort of easy to reference document for other researchers. Now, there's kind of a spin-off of this, which some of you may run into, and I want to clarify this because this will be helpful for you when you're choosing documents and studies and sources and scholarly journal articles to read and annotate for your bibliography. There's something called a meta-analysis, which is also a pretty common type of research that's done. And what that means is the researchers go out and they look at all of the secondary research that's been published. So primary research is the research that we do. It is original experiments, original studies, ones that we write about. Secondary research is kind of the secondhand material that we get from the literature, from the journals. And a meta-analysis goes out and looks at that and repurposes the data, takes a look at the data, and tries to extrapolate findings from a body of research. And that's kind of similar to both an annotated bibliography and a literature review, but it's a little bit more systematic and a little bit more scientific in its approach. That's just in case you run into a meta-analysis. That's really what that means, and that's what that is. And they can be really helpful because they can look at this large corpus or large body of research, and they can really start to play with the data and the information and they can find themes and findings, and they can really take a look at sort of what the state of the art is. So in your annotated bibliography, you're going to have to brush up on your citations because you're going to have a full APA bibliographic entry. And I would encourage you to use the resources at your disposal. If you use Google Scholar or the library databases, you'll be able to pretty quickly click on the Cite button, find the APA citation, copy and paste, so that's pretty easy. In the event that you can't do that, there are many resources out there for you. You can use the Purdue OWL website, which has some pretty helpful templates and guides, or you can use a tool called Noodle Tools. And if you're not familiar with that, I would encourage you to Google that and check that out. There's a free version of it called Noodle Tools Express. That you could easily access on the web, and it works just like any citation generator that you've used in the past, where you can plug in the information and it generates the citation for you. And so that's pretty straightforward. You shouldn't have any problems with the citations. And then as far as your annotations go, again, we're practicing that synthesis skill, so you need to be able to quickly encapsulate the purpose of the study, the methods of the study, the findings of the study, and the implications of the study. And of course, you can include any limitations or questions about the study in terms of its impact. And so that's really what you're doing there. And then you're tying that back to a research question that you have. And one of the things that I'm really stressing here is that your research questions have to be super specific. You are going to set yourself up for failure. And I mean that if you try to choose something really general. So if you do something like heart disease, that's not going to be good enough. You need to look at a particular element of heart disease, contributing factor to heart disease, and look at that specific thing and find out what we know about that, or a particular treatment for heart disease, and figure out its efficacy, its limitations, who it works best for. So it's really important to me that you look really closely at a particular topic. If you choose something too broad, you're going to have a hard time reining in the literature. The beautiful part of this is that if you pick a really specific topic, there's a good chance that if you find one article that discusses that, you'll be able to trace it both backwards and forwards. So you'll be able to look at people who have cited that particular study, who are doing similar studies, studying the same topic, and you'll be able to, using Google Scholar, if you remember, you'll be able to look forward and see who's cited it since its publication. And what's great about that is that you'll be able to trace that conversation, and you should have no problem once you find a topic picking out those sources, and then it's just a matter of reading and annotating them and seeing what methods they deployed to study that topic, what their findings were and how they relate to other findings, and then ultimately what the limitations were relative to their population or their methodology or whatever. So if you haven't, and I know for a fact that people haven't because I can look at the data, if you haven't watched the videos from week 3, I believe it was, where I show you how to use the library databases, Google Scholar, and how to use Google more effectively, you need to watch those because those will be instrumental in you being able to find sources and trace a conversation. If you're having trouble picking a topic, you need to reach out to me immediately because it's really going to lay the foundation for this entire assignment sequence. The best way to get in touch with me is through text or to call. That's the most immediate. I'm happy to talk to you in either of those venues. Of course, email works, a little bit less immediate, but I will do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. And we really need to hammer out a topic. So there's some really great topics going on in the class. For instance, one of the ones I'd like to point out that's a great topic is the use of music therapy to treat Alzheimer's. So, and Isabel, one of your classmates, is using that topic. And now Isabel has a very particular set of search terms that she can use in either Google Scholar or the library databases, and a very, very small window through which to look. And now she can look at the various ways people have used music therapy to treat folks with Alzheimer's. And so she has a very particular, she's got blinders on, and she's not looking at everything that has to do with music therapy, and she's not looking at everything that has to do with Alzheimer's. So she'll be able to see maybe what the best approaches to use to music therapy are, what types of symptoms it mitigates, what types of symptoms it can't mitigate, what the limitations of music therapy are, what types of Alzheimer's it works on, what types of Alzheimer's it doesn't work on. And so that's super focused. I know we have other folks who are looking at other topics, too, that are very specific. We have people looking at the effect of fasting on, I think it's ketones, topic I know very little about, but is very specific. And so that person, Robert, can now trace the various studies that connect those two things, fasting and ketones. So that's the level of specificity you need. Otherwise, you really are going to be bombarded with information because there are so many different ways to look at larger phenomena like particular diseases. So again, I can't stress that enough, but the actual putting together of the annotated bibliography should be second nature to you because we've practiced summarizing so much so far this semester. So just so you know, this week you'll be sort of catching up if you're not caught up. You'll be working on putting together your first 4 annotations for your annotated bibliography. You'll turn those into me kind of as a test to see how you're doing. I'll give you feedback on those relative to both your APA citations and your annotations. And if everything looks good there, then I'll say green light, and you can finish those up over the holiday weekend. That's Sunday of Thanksgiving, and once we get that, we'll be ready to rock and roll, and we'll start working on the literature review, which is where we start to put this together into a more seamless sort of package. Whereas the annotated bibliography is sort of compartmentalized and disjointed, the literature review is going to be your opportunity to really express fluidly the themes and the state of the art that you're seeing relative to this topic. And this, again, is where you can talk about the level of consensus or dissensus. You can talk about the limitations of the body of research so far, areas where they need to further explore, and those types of things. And we'll go into greater depth on that soon. But that's what we're doing, and that's where we're at. In some ways, the semester is relatively front-loaded with assignments from here on out. You really have 2 major deliverables left. You have the annotated bibliography and the literature review, and we're going to be working on those from now until the end of the semester, which is in about 4 weeks. So if you need anything at all, I can't stress enough, please reach out to me. I know I'm meeting with a couple of you this week, and that's really important. If something's difficult in the class, something's not clear in the class, I need to know about it as soon as possible. You know, when you write me little messages in Blackboard the night something's due, there's very little I can do to help you. If you reach out to me a few days in advance, I will meet you in your hometown if I need to help you. But I need to know those things as soon as possible. So you have my phone number, you have my email address, and please loop me into your writing process as much or as little as you see fit. I'm here to give you feedback and to help you learn how to become better writers. So thanks a lot, and I look forward to working with you over the next 4 weeks. Thanks.